Hi, Sharif.
Hello, Justina.
How are you today?
I am good, thank you. I'm really good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm excited for our chat today about the avoidant masculine. It's like one of my most favorite things to talk about.
Mhm.
So I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. And you know what? I feel like all of our conversations are super interesting because you are somebody that you've walked through this. I'm a woman that teaches this stuff. And like, I'm not a man. Like, if I was a man, I feel like I wish I could be a man because I would be awesome. I'm not great at being a woman. Like, it would be so good because I know so much about the masculine. But I feel like you teach this stuff, but you've also embodied it. Like, you've gone through all of the suffering, and you're constantly trying to um, move through to the next level of love and freedom and growth, and it's just really cool. So I'm excited for this conversation. So I would love for you to introduce yourself,
Mhm.
tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, I always dread that question. I've been many things and done many things and been many people, I suppose. But within the context of this subject, like you said, um, I use this phrase "unhealed man," which really covers the man who is avoidant. Maybe even what people like to say narcissist these days, and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, is a man who brings his unprocessed emotional wounding into his relationships, and it shows
Mm.
up in many number of ways. And the reason that's my area of focus is because, well, that's me. I am an unhealed man in recovery, as I say.
Mm.
And so what that's meant, apart from obviously lots of stuff within my own personal life, a very tumultuous and varied relationship history. I'm a separated dad as well, ultimately because of my unhealed stuff. But professionally, I've coached men in self-development, which usually revolves around this masculine wound, this avoidant wound, and in their development of their inner masculine. And more recently, what I've been doing over the last couple of years is working exclusively with women, actually, and
Mm.
coaching them in how to really navigate relationship with the emotionally unavailable, avoidant, unhealed man, whether they are single and keep attracting such a man, or in relationship with a man who has become, or maybe always was, avoidant. So yeah, that's my
Another
whole.
one of my favorite topics. uh, um, that's a really, really great description. A really, really solid description of you and what you do. So thank you for that. So let's get into it. Let's talk about being, an unhealed man, which, by the way, I think is pretty harsh. Like, you'll probably disagree with me, but I feel like just claiming that you're unhealed and just kind of being unhealed forever and ever, like, I'm not buying it. I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm like, nah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a healing journey, right? And it's actually about the journey rather than the destination. So unhealed, we're all like, the truth is we are all unhealed men or
Mm.
women or whatever we are. And all of us, like literally all of us. That's the kind of thing. I guess I use this phrase "unhealed man" on a lot of my social media stuff because it kind of, a lot of the women who I work with, they're in that place where they're Googling all about the avoidant and anxious attachment and narcissistic abuse and all that kind of stuff. So I pop up with this kind of more gentle version, but it speaks to that part of them where they're like want to learn all about him, right? And
Mm.
ultimately, my message when you get into it is, hey, you're unhealed too, and so am I, and so we all are, and this journey of healing is actually where the beauty is.
Yeah. It's honestly amazing, especially with some of the things that I've gone through and realizing, as women, we really do put a lot of focus on the man. Like, what is he doing? Why can't he meet me? Why, just if he could, then it would be perfect, right? But like, fact of the matter is, like, even in my previous relationships, like, the second that person met me where I wanted to be met, or the second that person was like super intimate or like connected to his heart, I was like, I don't know about this. I
Yeah.
would shut down. I would feel like my sex drive would decrease. And, it just all comes back to this little game that we play forever with ourselves, which is, I'm not enough and I want to prove that I'm enough. And then I find somebody and they're showing me that I'm enough, and yay. But now they're showing me I'm a little too enough. And like, what's wrong with them that they like me so much? Like, ew, gross.
Yeah.
Like
That's super common.
it's ridiculous. Like, that's what we do all day.
Well, it's I mean, the thing, it's an incredibly common thing. And, here's the truth is, when it comes to like an avoidant man, or, that emotionally unavailable guy, is that consciously he's afraid of sort of getting too close, of being engulfed and trapped. And so he wants to sort of, be free of that. Below that, he is actually really afraid of being abandoned, which is why he doesn't get close in the first place. When you
Yeah.
flip that round, the anxiously attached person, who is almost always the woman as a feminine being, and we can talk more about how masculine tends to be avoidant and feminine tends to be anxious in this attachment style. She is consciously fearful of abandonment, but actually below that is fearful of really being too close and too seen, like really seen,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
really, and so yeah, it's very common that when we get what it is we want, then suddenly we freak out. And the flip side of that, of the experience you've described, is a man who is avoidant. Like, you can't get close to him. Then when you go, okay, I'm out, I'm done. Then suddenly he shows up all kind of like,
Yeah. And it's so interesting to me because even last night I was on a coaching call and I was teaching one of my clients a little bit about like genuine freedom. And to me, David Deida talks a lot about how the feminine is always moving towards love and the masculine is always moving towards freedom. But I actually see no difference between love and freedom. They're the same thing to me. Like, genuine love sets you free. Like, it's the same thing. So I believe that we all want the same thing. And like, the most interesting thing about this topic of like avoidance is that there is a level of conditioning that says love chains you, but actually it sets you fucking free. It's the highest level of freedom you can experience as a man. Like, do you agree with that?
100%, 100%. And it's something I've really come to. I've known that intellectually for some time. I've been reading Deida since forever, and I read that and I'm like, ultimately, love and freedom is the same. Okay, interesting. But only relatively recently did I feel what it is you just said, and it's absolutely true. And again, it's kind of like two different paths to the same destination. Love and freedom are the same in that place, and you can be in love, in a loving relationship, and that freedom part is an inside job. As a man, that's for us to be free in our lives, free in ourselves, so that we can be free and in love. And likewise, when, for those of us who are constantly chasing love at the highest levels, when you have it and you feel deeply loved, you are free.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, on the flip side, the feminine side, the work there is to not use love as a means to an end, right? To get somebody and hold on to them, right? Because typically what women do is, like you said, it's like an anxious thing. Not all women are like that, but, typically you'll see a woman, she's using her love as a way to keep somebody there, right? And the second that he doesn't meet her need the way that she thinks it should be met, it's taken away, right? Like we shut down. No more love for you. We're closing all the doors and windows here, turning the lights off. You can stay out in the cold. And it's like this really interesting dynamic. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Even just watching, you know, one of my friends who's going through that, you know, the boyfriend's avoidant and she's constantly like, what do I do? How do I, you know, and I'm like, well, just all you have to do is just connect. I mean, really, like you just have to connect to your engagement level, right? So like if your boyfriend's being a robot, like if anybody else was being a robot, like forget about your boyfriend. If anybody else was being a robot, how engaged would you be in that conversation? You wouldn't be like, oh my God, please be more engaging to me. Please let me pull you in, right? No, you'd be like, I'm gonna go now. I'm bored. So bye, right? But like when we're in relationship, we're like, oh my God, they're a robot. What can I do to like draw them in? When really like our job as a woman is to be like, you're either drawing me in or you're not. You know, like not please draw me in, like please change how you're feeling right now. And so I've been thinking about this a lot and like processing this a lot lately, where, you know, this dynamic of this exhausting dynamic. I mean, it is exhausting, you know, unless I really think this dynamic comes from two people who may just not be on the same level of consciousness. You know, or two people who are on the same level of consciousness, but they haven't understood what the point is. You know, what is the point here? What's the point? And the point is to choose love over fear because it's a path of growth. But instead it's like, oh, I need to get the house and the picket fence and the dog and the kid and the ring and the on and on and on. And you keep getting all these things and you're like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next part of this game that I'm playing that I can up level to it? But like, there's no growth, right? So it's very interesting. I love to like sit around and just think about this stuff. Like, what is going on here? You look around and you're just like, what is going on here? You know, most people I know, they're in relationship just to be in relationship.
Yeah, because they feel like they have to be. It's kind of a societal thing, and you know, there's a big conversation around that. But a lot of people, yeah, they're in relationship just because they kind of feel that they have to. And I think it's this combination of a certain amount of environmental conditioning and what they've seen and what we've all been told we have to have, but also with a deeper yearning that I believe we do really want to be paired up with somebody for, you know, a multitude of reasons, from the spiritual to the evolutionary and survival kind of stuff, you know, in a caveman kind of things and all that. But yeah, most people, they get together very unconsciously, and then they sort of, well, we've been together for this amount of time, so let's move in. Now we've lived together this amount of time, and we should get married. And then and it's all just, yeah, I see that a lot. Couples just sort of doing exactly like I did, to be perfectly fair, right up until, you know, my current relationship, which is just bumbling their way through it.
I call it flailing around. Just flailing around. You know, there was like an image that you said to me, and it never left me. And that was that, you know, in relationship, when your man is flailing around, crawling on the floor, just totally in fear, freaking out, you just sit on your throne and you just watch, you just witness, and not in a judgmental way, not in a way to say like you're not enough and you're pathetic, but just witnessing and not trying to fix and not trying to beg and not trying to get this person to come back to you and to get it together so that you can feel loved. It's just like witnessing. And like, that was really, really, really powerful to visualize that as a woman. Extremely difficult to implement. Wildly difficult to implement. But I'd like, you know, since we're talking about avoidance, I want you to like share a little bit about the times in your life that you've been crawling on the floor in relationship.
I knew I was going to regret coming on this. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there have been many specific individual situations, but and in the past where I've been in less conscious relationships, and let's just say toxic relationships, right, where I would be in some sort of place like that, or desperately trying to avoid being in that place. I was not held there. I was not. I did not feel safe, and I was in some situation, going through some shit, and it was like, I've got to deal with this. Oh, I'm echoing.
Yeah, I was having like a little bit of interference. I'm listening to you, but I'm just messing around with some interference here. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I ultimately didn't feel safe to share that. And so I would keep it to myself, try to deal with it by myself, which would make me ultimately more withdrawn, which would make her more anxious, and then it would just be a giant clusterfuck ultimately. Mm-hmm. Whereas, what I've come to experience and has really been incredibly healing for me on all the levels, really, which is where, maybe I'm in a certain place, I've got some stuff going on to varying degrees, some sort of crisis. And what I feel from her, from Beth, is this throne-like position, is a kind of stillness and a kind of I'm being held and witnessed there in such a way and supported energetically, where whatever I need, it's there. But the most healing part is that she's not freaking out because I'm freaking out. Yeah. Because when that happens, then
and that's the hardest part, as a woman, because you're on this person's train, right? And then they're going fucking crazy, and you're like, okay, I'm on this train now. It's really, really, really hard to stay in your power, to stay like in a place of like love, and realize like, I don't have to freak out right now just because my partner's freaking out. Like, he'll come back. He'll be okay.
Well, it's one thing to stay in your power, but honestly, for most of the women who I work with, and what we teach them to do is to actually find that power to begin with. And most women, most people, right, are walking around and flailing and bumbling through their relationships completely disempowered. And so it's a process, an embodied process, a multifaceted process of learning what that power is, right? Because what it isn't is, well, I'm just going to let him do that thing over there, and when he's ready to come back to me, it's not that. That's not it at all.
Yeah. It's a knowing. It's a trust that things will work out the way they're meant to. It's really just beyond the partner. It's just a trust. It's just a trust in life, in something bigger, in yourself, or it's just trust. Like, to me, that's what it comes down to, is no matter if my partner's crawling around on the floor, like, I can trust that I'm going to be okay. That, that's it. Like, it's just going to be okay, regardless of, what the outcome is. And I'm wondering if is that what you teach women as far as finding their power? Are they really just finding trust?
It's ultimately about a total reframe of what love is. And so we teach love with a capital L, like big love, as a higher power, really. And so in relationship, our relationship to that kind of determines the quality of our relationship to each other. And years and years ago, when I was a teenager, I was watching, I don't remember where I heard it, something on TV. It was like a Christian family, and it was a husband and wife, and sorry, I've got an alarm going off here, and that's my alarm to visualize. I have a set alarm every day to do some visualization. That's how cool and woke I am. So, and then so there's this Christian couple, this husband and wife, and they said something like, Jesus comes first in our marriage. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what does that even mean? What are you talking about? How can that be a thing? What do you mean? I get it, and it might not necessarily be Jesus for us and what we teach, but love itself as a higher power, and so this trust that you speak about is this deep sense of feeling safe and loved and having trust in that now, and that is a totally inside job, and when both parties are doing that, or even when just one partner in a relationship has that thing sort of dialed in, it can change everything.
Do you feel that that is more, to me, it feels like more of a masculine quality? I mean, I know that like when two, masculine or feminine is like essentially in their power, it really does come down to like feeling into something bigger or trust. But do you feel that the masculine is meant to set that precedence in relationship, or do you think that it's really just about two really integrated people coming together? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, even when two really conscious people who have done the work separately and come together, when they do that and they do come together, at any given point, one person is more in it than the other. One person is going to be more aware of what's going on here. And whoever in any given moment sort of takes the lead and says, the relationship, I see it kind of going this way, and I feel like what we need to do is whatever it is, adjustment, is taking the masculine role in that moment. And in an ideal setup with a masculine and feminine being, and let's say it's a man and a woman respectively, then as the masculine, as the person who is most at home in the masculine, you want to have this kind of awareness of the relationship and of yourself, and this sensitivity to feel where is this going, what's the direction of our relationship. And yeah, I mean, for example, Beth and I, we just moved into this new house, and we have our program that we run for.
There we go. So you're saying you have a program that you run for women?
Back. Yeah. All right. So yeah, I'm back. What was I saying? Yeah. So we recently moved into this house, and there's all kinds of stuff you've got to do logistically. You got to take care of all the stuff and all this stuff. And I felt that one of the primary things of our relationship is this deeper purpose, which is what we want to create and give birth to through the relationship, which is bigger than ourselves. And at the moment, that's primarily through the program that we run and how we serve people through that. And what I felt, and she agreed, was that we'd kind of come off that. We kind of lost sight of the bigger picture, and our relationship for the week that we were moving in here and all this stuff was going on was just about us. It's like me and her, and in so doing, the relationship became very small, what a lot of people want to do is take their relationship and make it's just me and this person forever, and that's it. But that's actually very small and opens the door to all kinds of problems. So what we always want to do, make sure, is that our relationship is about something far bigger than the both of us. And so by taking this sort of masculine lead, if you will, I kind of noticed this, I brought it up, but she had already noticed it as well. So it's not like she needed me to do that. And then we kind of realigned.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, if we kind of bring this down to like a more mainstream conversation?
Yep.
For people who, for some of the guys that are watching this who have literally never heard of half of this stuff, right? Like love and freedom and connecting to God and, having a bigger purpose outside the relationship. And they're simply just at the beginning of like, relationships terrify me.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of connecting with my heart. I'm terrified of being vulnerable. What do you have to say to them? What do you have to say as somebody who used to live there?
Yeah. It's so interesting because most of the people who come to me have already developed a certain amount of understanding around it. So it's a great question. I think the first thing is, as cliche as it sounds, is you've got to do the work. You've got to start, and even if it's as fundamental and as just going to therapy and discovering what it is that's going on with you. Traditional therapy is a long road for a lot of people. There are coaching modalities which are often much more effective, but particularly for men, is if you can explore this stuff in a group of men, or even one man who has walked this path ahead of you and is a conscious man, and learn to just speak about what's going on for you in a very authentic way. Usually as men, what we do is we try and dress it up with humor or bravado, or we wear a certain kind of mask of machismo, or sometimes a mask of like super sensitivity and meekness, which is also bullshit. But just to get really real about what you're feeling and just start speaking. I guess that's the very, very, very first step for somebody who's incredibly closed up.
Can you describe the payoff, right? So like, I'm a guy, I have survived thus far by not connecting because society has told me that will not get me love and belonging. And also I'm afraid of love and belonging. So why should I go to therapy? Why should I open that? Like, what is that going to do for me? What is the ultimate payoff here? Most guys don't understand that there's a payoff. It just feels like I'm opening into something that feels really big, really uncontrollable, really wild, really like, why am I doing that when I feel like I have the illusion of control right now? I'm controlled.
And you can so tell that you've been working with men and I've been working with women. Like, it's so obvious.
I know.
Yeah, you nailed it. It's exactly how men think when they're at a certain stage. So I mean, often the incentive, the way in to get men into doing any of this, particularly if they're single men, is you'll get laid more. Honestly,
you will, yeah.
I mean, the truth is, when you do this kind of work, it benefits all other areas, and it might be a little. Here's the thing: you can be closed up and avoidant and don't engage in love and affection and you can get quite far like that in life as a man. If you just go pure alpha, like, I'm going to achieve things, I'm going to make money, I'm going to, keep everyone away and just do my thing and achieve my goals. Lots and lots of men have got very far professionally, financially, in terms of their personal goals in life by doing it that way. But all of them reach a point where as they get older and all of that starts to naturally slow down and soften, that they do want something more. They do want something deeper. And the high that you get from professional, financial, and sort of even sport or whatever endeavors you have, and they're succeeding, it, like all drugs, it wears off, and eventually it doesn't work anymore, and your capacity to achieve those things doesn't work anymore, and you don't want to be the lonely old man who's maybe achieved lots of stuff, like, you know, Scrooge. You don't want to be like him, where he's got all the money but still like not fulfilled. And here's the truth is, when you do it and in the right way, you don't have to like open the floodgates and now you're just going to be like a crying mess and you can't get anything done, you know. And you go about it in a very healthy kind of way, doing this work, you can get way more satisfaction out of the things that you achieve. You become more attractive to not just women, not just to sexual romantic encounters, but even professionally. People trust you more. When you are grounded, when you are centered, when your spine is strong and in integrity, people start throwing money at you. People start, you know, give opportunities, just open up. And it doesn't mean that life becomes easy. New challenges show up, but they're very different, and it's just a way more satisfying way to live when you can appreciate not just achieving things and getting stuff done, but from a deeper place, from the inside out as well.
That's like where my heart is like just thinking about people, men, whoever, that just, they're so afraid that they end up creating the thing they're most afraid of, which is just being alone forever, you know, never having that deep connection. And that was a really amazing picture, visualization that you just painted. And, you know, the payoff that we're talking about in terms of like, how do you get a guy to do the work? Like, how do you get them to see the value in this, right? So somebody might be hearing this right now and saying, oh yeah, okay, but like, I don't want the love and connection. Like, that's the point. So like, okay, maybe it'll slow down, but like, my life will slow down, and like, I get it. Like, maybe I'll be sad and old one day, but like, that's not really enough to get me to do the work. And like, cause really the point is for you, you know, like, people think that they have to do these certain things because, you know, whatever reason. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's a level of fulfillment. Like, when you continue running specific patterns forever and ever and ever, and you keep getting the same result over. I mean, it's so true. And like, even my ex-husband, he's like a perfect example. Our relationship was a perfect example of somebody who was so utterly terrified of knowing himself, like utterly terrified of doing the work, that we left the relationship and he just went on to the next one, you know, the next same exact pattern.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, that to me causes significantly more pain and suffering than what you said around having this connection to your own truth and integrity and feeling into the heart and living from, you know, this straight spine place, and knowing that it's not going to be easy, right? There's going to be challenges, and you're going to have to feel and process things that are uncomfortable. And, but the payoff is, right? So like, as far as you and I are concerned, like, we know that the ultimate point of life is love. Like, there's nothing beyond that. There's actually nothing beyond that. And like, if you want to argue that, like, talk to anybody on their deathbed, even Scrooge on his deathbed. Like, that's it. No one gives a shit about anything except being enough for love, right? And so there's much more risk in deciding to live a life of, okay, I'm going to go out there and do the pinnacle of life. I'm going to go out there and like, you know, connect. And it's really scary because like, what if I'm not enough? You know, I'm enough to like make the money. I'm enough to like have the good career. I'm enough to like get a few women to like have sex with me. But like, what if I can't ever reach the ultimate thing? Right. And so many people don't realize that everything we do, literally, there's nothing else that we do in life except avoid death and chase love. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else beyond either of those things, in my opinion. In my opinion. And whether that be somebody who sits and meditates and connects to that, you know, capital L love, right? They're chasing that. Or, you know, a woman who's chasing man after man after man after man, get that love. Or the person that's, you know, chasing money, right? At the end of the day, it's just, can I have all this stuff so that somebody will love me, right? Can I be good enough for love? Like, that's it. And so the payoff is really sort of difficult to describe. Don't you think?
Well, you know, I mean, a couple of things came up while you were speaking, and you know, when it comes to men, often what I'll do is, you know, paint a picture of a relationship. So if they're quite avoidant of relationship in particular, or committed relationship, and look, so was I. I mean, and while conscious, not unconsciously, like I don't want to. I mean, consciously, I made some decisions that I this is after and while doing the work, that I would never I'd never be in a relationship with just like one woman and be in this kind of committed monogamous thing. And I definitely would never live with a woman ever again. These were conscious decisions I made, and the, you know, as my purpose became more and more important, that kind of is what emerged. And it's not that I wouldn't have a primary woman, but I would never, like, I would not have just one. And that's the kind of place I was at while conscious and while being a great dad and achieving things in my life and all of that.
Can you say why? Like, what was the underlying belief system? What was the underlying fear for you?
Well, it wasn't actually fear. You know, there was some fear. Here's the thing: the truth is, it was actually a letting go of this childish need for woman in the way that I'd been experiencing up until that point. And then also this sort of deepening of my sense of purpose. And as that become the more important thing, but I was always open to that changing. And I always knew it would have to be, because that woman would have to be just something, like something so unlike anything I'd experienced up until that point. And so what I'll do with men is paint a picture, because here's what happens is, when you get to that point where you are so on purpose and you've done the work and you're attracting all these opportunities and to be quite honest, lots of women, and you become what some might term a high value man, right? You have the choice. You have that choice. And amongst that choice, there are going to be, and you know, just as there aren't an enormous number of super conscious high value men, there's not an enormous number of super well heeled, put together women, to be quite honest. Although Beth and I are trying to change that, but they're there. And so for a man, I'd invite him to imagine having a relationship where he's just so deeply seen and loved and appreciated, but not needed in the way that he's almost certainly experienced up until now, like all of us have, and usually by our own mothers even, right? Not even just by a romantic relationship. And in the same way that when I paint a picture for women of a conscious man who sees and is present for you and can hold that space for you and all that stuff, and they're like, oh my God, I can't even imagine it. Most men can't even imagine what a really high level relationship with a high level woman is like. But when you paint that picture for them and they realize, well, that doesn't take me away from my purpose, that supports me in everything I want to do. And that's been my experience is since being in this relationship, everything has boom got better, you know, more, everything that I wanted to achieve outside of that. And so that's entirely possible. And the other thing I'd say to men as well is stop being such a pussy. You know, like you're afraid to go in the feeling, like do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I agree.
You know, and so my approach for men is very different from my approach to women. And obviously I don't talk to women in quite that way, but when it comes to working with men, often you've got to remind them that there is you know, here's the thing, right? This word warrior gets thrown around a lot in sort of self-help and new age stuff and conscious stuff and all of that, right? Everyone's a fucking warrior. Everybody's a warrior of light and all these kind of things. And I don't buy it. That for me, the warrior is a very specific thing. It's a job title. And maybe this comes from my martial arts experience and my brief military experience as well. But for me, warrior is a very real thing. It's a very difficult path. And so everybody just calling themselves warrior, I don't buy it, and I don't dig it. And in fact, I find it quite almost offensive, right? So there's two areas where I feel like real warrior heart is you can use that terminology and you can approach it in that way. One is in actual warfare. It's a very unpleasant conversation to have, but it's a real thing. It's not going to end anytime soon. And at this point in human evolution or whatever, we still need to defend ourselves, and it's a real thing, right? So there are real warriors out there. They're called soldiers, and they're doing a very difficult job, very dangerous stuff. And there's that, right?
Yeah.
And they go through a process of induction and initiation into that, and it's very real. Then the other area where I feel like that word can be used justifiably is in the realm of love and an inner heart exploration, because the level of courage and balls that you need for both are the same. You know, I who kick down doors and shoot people in the face. You know, I know people who have done this, right? But they still don't have the balls to go inward.
Yeah.
And to, you know, take that same guy, and not to take anything away from his physical courage and all of that. But then you say, well, tell me about your mother, you know, and then you'll see him leave the room. You'll run away or hide under the blanket, you know. So,
Yeah.
So for men, that's the approach I take is sort of to energetically sort of, you know,
help them reconnect to courage, because there is nothing that takes more courage than love. It's so true. I actually just wrote a post about that, and I was going to post about it. You know, I have this joke that I make about monks up on the mountaintop that are so enlightened. I'm like, give that motherfucker a girlfriend and let's see what happens. Like, you know, relationships are the vehicle to trigger the absolute shit out of you and then allow you to access a level of courage that you didn't know you were capable of. And it seems in like, literally, I was writing in this post about how like we as a society, we poo-poo love, like it's the stupidest thing, it's for pussies. No, the people who are really genuinely loving, the people who really walk around with their heart open, they're the most courageous people. It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, and most people think like, oh, I want to get in relationship to like make myself feel better. I want to get into relationship to like, cover up how alone I feel, or, whatever insane amount of emotions that they're suffering from. And they say, oh, this person's not a match, or this person, da, 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 da. And really at the end of the day, like that person is there to trigger your trauma. Like they're there to fucking trigger your shit so you can heal from it. And if you just allow it, if you have the courage, like you said, to sit and face your mom, to sit and face, whatever you experienced, throughout your life that you can't face, you haven't been able to face, but knowing that that person is both the cause and the cure, right? Like they're re-triggering shit for you, but they're doing it so that it can finally come up to be healed.
Yeah.
That is such an extraordinary place to be. Like, it's so powerful. And like when you have two partners on the same page around that, like, oh my God, forget it.
And it's ultimately so much more fulfilling to live life courageously. You want to, when, as you said, when you're on your deathbed, everybody, and I say the same thing, no matter who you are, everybody's going to have some version of the same question. If they're lucky enough to be on a deathbed and have sort of final thoughts and stuff like that, is, and I feel this having seen people in that place, and it's, I strongly believe that everybody's going to ask some version of this question of, did I love enough, or did I love deeply enough? Did I give all I could give? And the truth is, most people everyone has infinite potential. Let's say that, right? Like everyone has the potential for change and to achieve amazing things, and I believe that with all my heart.
Yeah.
But most people are walking around life in an extreme state of cowardice. They're terrified, and that's fine. Be terrified, but bravery is being scared and still doing the thing. And most people, men and women, are absolute cowards.
Yeah. Well, and they're waiting too. Most people are waiting for the moment that the fear disappears. But like, that's not courage. Courage is not like, oh, I'm not afraid anymore, so I'm going to do it. No, it's like you said, doing it, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. That's courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's so people are waiting for that little window to appear of like, okay, I can do this. Let's go. I'm not afraid anymore. But like, actually, you're never not going to be afraid. Like even, even at the level which like you and I are both teachers, right? And in our relationships, like I could tell you, I can count how many times I've had a fucking meltdown, and like, I'm in fear. I don't want to do this anymore. Like nobody is exempt. Nope. And that's what I'm saying. The monk on the mountain, no, like no one is exempt from how scary love is. It's like, it's the most scary thing ever. It's like the point of life.
Absolutely. And to circle back to your point earlier about the sitting on the throne when he's flailing around, that's the bravery piece, because it's not easy to be in your power. Being in your power doesn't always mean you just feel great and you aren't anxious. It means being able to hold to your center and to keep your heart open at the same time and stay connected to something, to love itself really in that moment.
To be aligned. Yeah. To be aligned with truth, even if it's like everything inside of you is like, I have to do something about this. I have to fix it. I have to do something because like he's going to disappear or whatever, like it is, that courage is being able to hear the fear and the excitement of the fear in your body. That's literally like, you need to take action right now. Like you need to take action like 5 minutes ago. Let's go. And to be able to just sit with that, to just be able to sit with that and just feel that, but not take action, or take action in a complete counterintuitive way than what all of the fear is telling you, which is really like, you know, when you get to that place, that's real mastery, because, you know, your thinking brain is going on low power mode. Everything in your body that does not consist of helping you to run or fight in that moment is on low power mode. So to be able to get to the point where you can sit with the stress response and you can sit with that extreme fear and be able to turn this back on, that's, you know, to me, that's one of the greatest payoffs, because that's true emotional control, right? And it's not control in like, I have to control everything around me so that I can be okay all the time. It's like, I'm not okay, but like, I'm okay.
Yes, okay. Self-mastery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I imagine the payoff being, and typically what I explain to men when they're like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? Is that when you get to the other side, and it's never going to be perfect, you know, when you get to the other side, there is a level of peace. There's no, it's like living in, you know, the difference between living in a reactionary state and a state where you get to respond to what's happening. And when you respond, you are choosing, like that's the power, is you are actually making a choice in alignment with what's actually true for you. Instead of, this fear feels so real and so true, and I'm just going to fly off the handle right now. I'm just going to follow this. And then once I settle down, it's like, oh, shit, that wasn't what I wanted at all. That wasn't in alignment. Fuck. It's so hard. Yeah. It's really so like, to anybody that's listening to this right now, like, there's no such thing as perfect. Like, there's no such thing as like getting to a point where like you respond to everything perfectly in alignment with your truth. You can get really good at it by the end of your life if you practice every day for, you know, 50 years. But ultimately, like, there's no shortage of triggers that either make us feel not enough, that our love and belonging are being threatened, or that we might actually die. That's life. That's life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's a really good summary. And you know, the other thing I would add in terms of the payoff is again, just imagine a reality in where, you know, when you walk into a room or a situation, people can feel that you are so deeply trustable. You know, and of course it's not going to be impeccably like that, but you know, you can feel and see, you get that feedback from the people in your life, your partner, your colleagues, your staff, or whatever, your kids, that they trust you, that they see you, that they believe in you. And again, these opportunities open up in all of those realms, and you just get to die knowing that, you know, as I heard somebody say, you die empty, you know, having given everything. And that doesn't mean having achieved everything, but it means having given everything. And to be quite honest, if a man is really at a low life state of consciousness where he doesn't even know what I just said, then there is a point where you can't really turn him into super conscious, amazing man. But you can at least invite him onto the path of some self-development, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that emptiness is not an emptiness. It's not the sense of the word where we feel like, oh my God, I'm so empty, my life's so empty, right? It's an emptiness you're like void of clinging to anything. You know, that moment before you die, you're like, oh no, you know, right? Like, is that what?
Yeah. So die empty, as in given all you could. And you know, there's this amazing, beautiful poem called "If" by Rudyard Kipling, which, as far as I can tell, is like, this one poem is like almost a perfect manual for how to be a man, to be honest. And one of the last parts of it is, If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the world and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. And it's that unforgiving minute, the 60 seconds worth of distance runs, that final sprint of just give, just go, give it, do it, And again, so many people are living in this kind of, I don't want to give too much away, and so that's what I mean by empty, is having given it all.
Yeah. It's almost like the experience after an orgasm or something.
Yeah, emptying out.
Yeah, like all done. I'm complete. I'm ready to go. It's like an emptiness, but it's also completion. It's kind of the same difference between the two. Amazing. Thank you, Sharif.
Yeah.
I love this conversation. Is there anything else that you want to speak on or add?
I think just for men, there's for men who are avoidant, right? What can you do if they do feel the need, the incentive to actually do something about it? How do they go about it? I mean, the first thing is to do the work, do the inner exploration, find out what the patterns are, find out what your mother did to traumatize you so badly, and then go, oh yeah, realizing that, do that stuff, just do it. Then develop and I guess is specific for relationship, is develop an acute sensitivity to yourself and your own body, and knowing when you are feeling trapped, enmeshed, engulfed, and all of that stuff. And then the next part is learn to manage distance. So like my office and my man cave, my room for doing all my work now in this new house, which is partly why we moved into it, is literally in a separate building in the backyard. Like it's literally in a separate place, because I need that distance. So learn to manage distance. Don't let yourself be trapped in your relationship, and then suddenly you start leaking out in different places. Realize when you need some space from her, and say it, and take the space consciously. And then when you're back in it, be back in it. And then the next part and the final part is, and this won't necessarily even make sense to everybody, but deepen your purpose, which is, for some men at a certain stage of their life, that might just be literally their job or their work or some project that they have going on. Whatever it is, whatever the thing is that's most calling you, do whatever you can to get closer and closer and deeper to that, so that your relationship, develop an intimacy with that, and take that as deeply as it can go. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find that within that is some kind of service. Whatever that thing is that you're doing, it's a gift that you give to the world once you've achieved that thing. And then when you do that, you'll find another purpose, but deepen that purpose.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your incredible, amazing wisdom. It feels like it's just like this thing that you bestow upon me every time we talk. I love it so much. Like I said, that vision of the throne is just permeated my being. And I share that with every woman. I'm like, no, you better get on your throne. So thank you so much, Sharif. And I hope that we can do this again soon.
We will, for sure.
Bye.
Take care.